Do any of you remember this Be the Batman commercial for Arkham Knight? It would show real people trying to be heroic like Batman in everyday situations. I remember there being a funny parody video of this commercial where some guy tries to stop a bunch of robbers on a train or something like that, and he just ends up getting shot, which is about how I would expect things to go if you tried to be Batman in real life. But I can't seem to find that video anymore. Anyway, when I was a kid pretending to be the Batman, my fantasies were a little tamer, and they looked more like this. Yeah, that's right, the 1960s Batman TV show. I used to watch this all the time as a kid, sitting in front of the television and just waiting for the fight scenes, ready to throw punches into the air while making bam and boof sound effects to go along with the on-screen visuals. Well, now as an adult, I've finally gotten an opportunity to be the Batman in virtual reality, and let's just say not much has changed.
You've committed your last crime.
In all seriousness though, Batman Arkham Shadow for the MetaQuest 3 is the most immersive Batman experience you'll ever have. It maintains the style and combat of the prior Arkham games while quite literally allowing you to see the world through Batman's eyes and experience being the Dark Knight from a first-person POV. It's a resounding success and one of the best VR games I've ever played, though not without its flaws, and we're going to discuss all of that in this video. Just a heads up that this video will contain some spoilers, but I'll try to tread lightly. There won't be any major plot point reveals, but I will be discussing the overall story and gameplay. If I could think of one phrase to describe this game, it would be a tale of two Batmans. The shadow in the title Arkham Shadow refers to a concept in Jungian psychology that Wikipedia describes as an unconscious aspect of the personality that does not correspond with the ego ideal, leading the ego to resist and project the shadow, creating conflict with it. Another more colloquial way to refer to it would be as a type of inner demon, or at least that's how it's often portrayed in this game. Now, this concept of duality has been explored in a lot of Batman media. It's common to refer to Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy public persona, as being the mask worn by Batman, and that Batman is actually his true personality. However, in this game, the duality of Batman takes on a different form as he dons the disguise of Matches Malone. Matches Malone should be familiar to most people who have read the comics or watched the animated shows, but for those unfamiliar with him, Matches Malone is an alter ego that Batman uses to infiltrate the criminal underworld, something that he can't do as Batman because the criminals are too scared of him, and something he also can't do as Bruce Wayne because he's too upper class. As Matches, however, he comes across as a hardened underworld criminal that the other inmates feel like they can trust. Donning this disguise, Batman infiltrates Blackgate Prison to uncover information about the elusive Rat King, the main villain of the game, who has been communicating via radio to convince criminals to join his gang and prepare for something known as the Day of Wrath. Using a makeshift Batcave set up by Alfred underneath the prison, you switch between the Matches and Batman outfits. The Matches part of the game usually takes place during the day, with an emphasis on exploration and dialogue. You'll walk around and talk to a bunch of NPCs trying to collect information. There are even the occasional combat scenes with Matches, which is a cool challenge because you can't use any of Batman's gadgets. However, it's at night when you're playing as Batman that the game really comes alive, and it utilizes a lot of the same exploration and combat techniques as in previous Arkham games, including using detective mode to scan crime scenes and solve puzzles. The combat is remarkably fluid for VR and bears a lot of resemblance to the flat-screen Arkham games. I did a previous video on my initial impressions of the combat that I'll link to in the description below. I'm going to play an edited version of that video, then add some further thoughts now that I've completed the game. The way you initiate combat is by literally throwing a punch at an attacker, and if another attacker sneaks up on you, then you'll get the same blue warning symbol as in the flat screen Arkham games, and all you have to do is thrust your hand out to the side to block them, and the camera will automatically rotate your POV towards that new thug, who you can then continue to pummel. If you're at a distance from the thug, then all you have to do is throw a punch at them and you'll fly across the screen to deliver a blow. Turn your head, see another enemy coming, throw your fist at that one, then throw your fist at another, and repeat until suddenly you're stringing combos together. Getting combos rewards you with special techniques that cause more damage and usually bring about an instant knockout. Just like in the flat screen Arkham games, if you encounter a heavily armored enemy, then you can stun them with a cape attack and deliver a beatdown. You can also deliver a beatdown to enemies that have been stunned and are on the ground. To perform a combo, you sometimes have to throw your punches to a specific part of the enemy's body or in a certain direction. You'll receive visual cues for this, similar to a rhythm game, and if you miss them, then the enemy will block your attack and interrupt your combo. On to the stealth combat, and this is where the combat really feels a lot like the Arkham games. It's got the same basic premise of hanging from the rafters of these gargoyle statues. You can perch up there, hang upside down, and then grab the thugs and string them up. Or you can do a glide kick if you get the drop on them. Likewise, you can also sneak up on them to do a quiet takedown, including by hiding underneath the floor grates. Basically, you can perform the same functions that you could in the flat screen Arkham games. It's actually quite remarkable. Now, of course, Batman also has an assortment of gadgets, and there's also an upgrade path, but I haven't really leveled up that much yet. All I've gotten to use is the Batarang and a smoke pellet, but both of them are pretty cool. So, having played through this game in its entirety now, I've also had a chance to check out more of the additional gadgets and techniques. There's the explosive gel and the bat claw, which should be familiar to anyone who's played the previous Batman games. There's also an explosive Batarang, a swarm of bats, and shock gloves that you can unlock against the enemies once you've gotten a high enough combo. It's all pretty cool, although I felt like the upgrade path in this game wasn't nearly as expansive as the previous games in the series. It's been a while since I played the flat screen Arkham games, and I'm going off memory here, so maybe I'm wrong. But even if I'm right, that discrepancy is easily explained away by the fact that this game is so much shorter than the flat screen games. There are also various puzzles and challenges to solve that are reminiscent of the Riddler trophies in prior games, except this time it's the Rat King's devices that you're taking out. You can also find items that will bring up character bios and dialogue to flesh out some of the characters. Overall, I didn't find these puzzles to be nearly as challenging as the Riddler trophies, and most of them are pretty repetitive, but it does add some extra gameplay challenges. Overall, the gameplay is a ton of fun and quite similar to the previous Arkham games, while immersing you in the Batman experience from a first-person virtual reality point of view. What drives this game's story the most is the character development. Now, like I said, I'm not going to reveal any major plot points, but I am going to reveal which characters appear in this game, so if you don't want to know that, you should skip to the next section. Batman's always been known for his supporting cast of characters, and the theme of duality includes many of his villains. Arkham Shadow takes place early in Batman's career, so you get to see some of the villains before they develop their evil alter egos. This includes Jonathan Crane and Harleen Quinzel, who we encounter working as psychiatrists before they turn into the Scarecrow and Harley Quinn. And of course, perhaps no Batman character represents duality more than Harvey Dent. While this game's Harvey does have the typical partnership with Batman and Jim Gordon, what's really interesting about the story is how much it fleshes out Harvey's relationship with Bruce. There are flashbacks in between each of the Days of Wrath that show how Bruce and Harvey were raised together by Leslie Tompkins and developed a friendship more akin to a brotherhood. It really adds a lot of weight to their Arkhamverse relationship. There are also some cool cameos throughout the game, like Arnold Wesker being in the cell next door and getting to see his transformation into the ventriloquist. And then later, the person in the cell next to you is none other than the Joker, and you get to play Knock Knock with him, which is pretty funny. You also get to see the early origins of Barbara Gordon as Oracle, and some people speculate that this thug Batman beats up early in the game is actually Dick Grayson. It's really cool to see so many early origin stories in the Arkhamverse. There's also a bunch of NPCs in Blackgate that you can talk to. The thugs are mostly split into three groups: the Rats, Falcone's gang, and Bane's ex-henchmen. There's also the prison guards and staff. Some of them do serve important story and gameplay functions, and foremost among them is a character named Joe, who works at the commissary. Joe provides you with various contraband items and helps to sneak you around Blackgate. He becomes something of a father figure to Matches Malone, which definitely complicates things later on. Other NPCs are just there for flavor dialogue, but a lot of the conversations are pretty funny, like these guys who plan an escape only to get sick, or this guy who is probably my favorite hype man.
I reckon he thinks you can help him out of some jam, but you never do that. Your match is freaking Malone, alright? The man, the myth, the legend, baby. How'd you get the name Matches? Is it like boxing matches? Matches like, I light you up? Matches like, you know, match for me, cause I karate chop you in the next week.
One last thing I want to mention is the boss fights. There aren't many in this game, maybe 3 or 4, depending on whether or not you want to count the final combat and stealth sections as a boss fight. And honestly, I found the boss fights to be underwhelming. It basically all boils down to some variation of dodge and attack, although the arenas that the fights take place in are pretty cool. My other big criticism about this game would be the bugs. Now, I played through it within a week or 2 of release, and the developer has already made a big patch since then, but hopefully there are more to come because there were multiple instances where this game just hardlocked for no apparent reason. Like the load screen would freeze, or a scene of dialogue would freeze, and I'd have to reload the last checkpoint. Then there were other weird things like character models not spawning, or gadgets not working, or my favorite being when I just randomly fall through the floor and drop into an endless abyss until I hard quit the game. Some of these bugs were so game breaking that if it wasn't such an otherwise engaging experience, I honestly might have given up on playing it. However, I have to say that it definitely ruined some of the enjoyment for me, and I hope that further patches smooth this game out further so that players get an optimal experience. So, final thoughts. This is one of my favorite VR games, certainly my favorite on the standalone Quest, and a worthwhile addition to the Arkham series. It stays faithful to the overall look and feel of the prior games, while also providing the most immersive Batman experience to date. This game is included for free with your purchase of a new Quest 3 or Quest 3S until April 30, 2025. So if you're a Batman fan and you've been considering the idea of getting a VR headset, now's the time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if so, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.